Live from Flagstaff, Arizona, on the campus of Northern Arizona University, it's the 2016 Flagstaff Mayoral Debate, presented by NAZ Today.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of NAZ Today as we host the 2016 Flagstaff Mayoral Debate. I'm Xavier Rangel.
And I'm Cheyenne Mumphrey. Tonight, both candidates, Jerry Nabours and Coral Evans, face off and compete for your vote right here on the campus of Northern Arizona University. Throughout the course of this debate, we will discuss a variety of topics and ask the candidates questions we have received through social media from our viewers. We are still accepting questions through the Lumberjack and NAZ Today emails or by using the hashtag FlagstaffDebate on Facebook and Twitter.
Now for each question, both candidates will have 1 minute to respond, and the first candidate who answers each question will have an optional 30-second rebuttal period. But first, we're going to start with opening statements. Candidates, you both have 1 minute for this segment in which you can outline priorities of your candidacy and if you were to be elected mayor in November. Jerry Nabours, you won the coin toss, which we did before the show, and you've decided to go first. So Jerry Nabours, your time starts now.
All right, thank you and good evening. And Cheyenne and Xavier, thank you very much for hosting us. It is a pleasure to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I am currently the mayor of Flagstaff, again, Jerry Nabours. I came to NAU a long time ago from Yuma. I graduated from NAU and then went to law school at the University of Arizona. As soon as I graduated from law school, I came right back to Flagstaff, and I practiced law in Flagstaff ever since. About 38 years ago at an NAU event, I met my wife, and we have been married for the last 38 years. And 4 years ago, I decided to run for mayor of Flagstaff. I was elected then. It's a 2-year term. I was re-elected 2 years ago, and now the cycle comes up again. Being mayor is my full-time job. I work at it every day of the week. You probably know or have seen that on Tuesday nights we have council meetings, and I'm chairman of the council and run the council meetings. But the rest of the week is very busy with city activities, and I hope that we'll have a chance to tell you a little bit about that tonight, what I do the rest of the week. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's going to be your time. Coral Evans, you now have 1 minute.
Well, hello. Thank you very much. Thank you, NAZ TV Today, and thank you to the NAU School of Communications for hosting us here tonight. Thank you for everybody who's in the studio watching this live, and thank you to everybody who's out there watching this at home or at work. I greatly appreciate you tuning in today. My name is Coral Evans, and I'm a current member of the Flagstaff City Council. I was first elected to the Flagstaff City Council in 2008, and I served as your vice mayor from 2012 to 2014. In addition to being on the Flagstaff City Council, I'm the executive director of the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. I'm also a small business owner, and I am looking forward to being your mayor. I'm running for mayor here in the city of Flagstaff because I believe that Flagstaff is at a crossroads. We are projected to be at over 100,000 people in 2030, and I think how we plan today and what we do today for the future is very crucial. I believe that the mayor of the city of Flagstaff is responsible for upholding the vision of the community. I believe it's the mayor's responsibility to make sure that the democratic process is followed and everybody has an opportunity to be a part of that. I also think it's the mayor's role and responsibility to work with all members of the Flagstaff City Council to lead the team forward to the betterment of Flagstaff. I'm looking forward to the questions tonight. I'm looking forward to the social media activity, and thank you for joining in.
Thank you, Councilwoman Evans. Your time is up. We will now begin the question portion of our debate. Our first topic tonight will cover some of the social issues affecting the city of Flagstaff. Our first question: what is the city of Flagstaff's relationship with Native American tribes, and what actions have you taken to build relationships, consider their voice, or provide assistance? Mayor Nabours, we will start with you. You have 1 minute.
Well, interesting coincidence, because tomorrow is the Mayor's Summit on Native American relationships that we hold about every other year with the, primarily the Navajo tribe. And we will explore issues that issues of the relationships between the Native Americans coming into Flagstaff and Flagstaff's effect on the Native Americans. It grew out of some complaints with how the police reacted to some of the Native American issues, and we have a police commission that works with the Navajo Tribal Commission to make sure that there's a complete understanding. And this is are issues that affect most of the cities that surround the Navajo Nation, and most of those cities will be represented tomorrow. So it's an ongoing dialogue that we have to make sure that we all understand each other and are working out our issues.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. That is your time. Councilwoman Evans, you have 1 minute.
Well, I feel that we have a great partnership with our Native American tribes, but I feel we could be doing a lot better. Most of us know that there is a contentious water settlement issue that we've been dealing with here in the city for quite some while. As a city council, we have established different mechanisms in which to work with our Native American partners, one of which is going to be a series of community town halls that will start in November and will go through the first quarter of next year, where we're going to sit down with not only one tribe, but all the tribes, and really get to an understanding of how they feel about racism, discrimination, economic development here in the town, and other things like that. I think that we can always do better with our partnerships. I was happy to be part of the Flagstaff City Council that helped establish the police interface committee, which talks to members of the community, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else we can do to partner with our Native American partners.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Oh, I don't think there's any rebuttal necessary. We all want to establish good relations with all of the Native American tribes, no question.
All right, Mayor Nabours, thank you. We're going to take a quick break right now, but before we do, throughout the night, we will have brief words from the candidates running for one of 3 city council seats.
Here's a word from your first city council candidate.
Hello, my name is Carla Brewster, and I work here in this beautiful platinum LEED building. It's called the Applied Research and Development Building. It's very unique and the only one like it of its kind on campus. But what I wanted to tell you was I am on the city council currently in Flagstaff, and I'm rerunning for that position also. So when it comes to voting, don't forget my name, Carla Brewster. I would like to see Flagstaff continue to grow. The reason being, it keeps our taxes low. The more people we have here paying into that pot and the more people we have employed, keeps everybody else's tax rate lower than if we had just a few people. So growth is good. It must be planned and in the right spot, but it is a good thing for Flagstaff. Just consider the recession. That was not good. So remember to vote for me, Carla Brewster. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim McCarthy. I am really happy to live in a community where my values align closely with those of the community. We care about protecting our neighborhoods from inappropriate development. We care about open space. We care about good jobs and the cost of housing here. I'm very optimistic about the future of Flagstaff. We're seeing growth, and growth can actually be good if it's done in a way that's compatible with our values. However, we are seeing some growth pains. We're seeing traffic congestion, we're seeing parking problems, and the cost of housing has gotten kind of out of line. So we need to work on those issues, and I will work on those issues if I get on City Council. So I look for your support. Jim McCarthy, thank you.
Welcome back to the 2016 Flagstaff mayoral debate. We're joined live tonight by a studio audience featuring representatives from the Flagstaff community. We want to thank you all for joining us tonight.
As a reminder, we are also accepting questions from social media and our email. If you have a question for the candidates, you can email them to the Lumberjack newspaper or NAZ Today, or you can use the hashtag Flagstaff Debate on Facebook and Twitter.
Right now, we're going to continue on the topic of social issues affecting the city of Flagstaff. Here's your next question.
What will you do to build or improve personal relationships with city council members, department heads, and city employees? Coral Evans, we will start with you. You have 1 minute.
Well, the first thing that I would like to say is that I think it's very important as a mayor that you meet individually with each member of the Flagstaff City Council to really understand what it is that they would like to get out of their terms and understand how you all can work together. I think that's extremely important. As mayor, that will be one of the first things that I do. I can tell you that that does not happen now. I think it's also very important that you sit and you work with the city manager, of which we as a council, the new council, will be hiring a new city manager, to really understand the vision, the mission, and really where we want to go as a city. I think that's crucial. Also, in meeting with different individuals, different department heads, you can find out how their values also align with the mission and the vision of the city. I think everybody working together is extremely important. I think also understanding the diversity is needed, the diversity of thought, the diversity of ideas, and not shutting those things down. And lastly, one of the first things I will do as a member of the Flagstaff City Council is to work with the other members of council to repeal the new policy that we have, that it takes 4 council members to even bring an idea up at council to even be heard or considered. I think that that stifles voice. I think that that stifles creativity. And I think, quite frankly, that takes away the voice of many, many people in our community.
Okay, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you now have 1 minute.
All right, thank you. It is important that we have diversity of opinion on the city council. It would be an odd city council if everyone always agreed on everything and if every vote was unanimous. Actually, most of our votes are unanimous because most of the votes are simply carrying out the work of the city. As far as the department heads, I have a huge advantage. As the mayor, I have an office in City Hall, and I see the department heads on a regular basis. I see the city employees daily, and I hear what's going on and what issues there may be with the staff, and I am able to find out things very quickly as they are happening because I am right down the hall from many of the departments. I also am out and attend quite a large number of events in the city, and through that I have a lot of contact and get a lot of feedback from people as to how the city is doing and what maybe we need to correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Coral Evans, your rebuttal.
I just want to mention that one of the first things that my opponent did when he was elected to office was to change the policy, where before, if a council member had an idea, you could bring that up at council and you could get that on a work session and you could debate that, talk about that, have civil discord about that. Now it takes a majority of council to even have an idea considered at a work session, to even have that idea talked about. I think that that's very alarming. And so one of the first things that I plan on doing is working with other members of the council to change that policy, to make sure that everybody's voice gets a chance to be heard.
Thank you, Councilwoman Evans. That will conclude this topic. Throughout the month, we have been collecting your questions for the candidates from social media and questions you have sent to our email.
We want to bring in our social media correspondent for this debate, Grace Finlayson, who is also the editor-in-chief of
Thanks,
the Wonder
guys.
Jack
Our
newspaper,
first question is from
who
Anthony
is live
Williams,
in the
and it is
newsroom with a question
regarding the
from our
legalization
viewers.
of recreational marijuana. He asks, if Prop 205 is passed, do you see it pushing Flagstaff in a good or bad direction long term?
All right, again, that question was in regards to the legalization of the recreational use of marijuana. If Proposition 205 is passed, do you see it pushing Flagstaff in a good or bad direction? We're going to start off with Mayor Nabours.
Boy, we'll have to see. I don't know if we can predict exactly what will happen. We've all seen the ads pro and con about recreational marijuana, and I have actually talked to a couple of teachers in Denver and asked them what is really the situation with recreational marijuana in Colorado. And they both told me it has not been that big of a problem. It's not been that big of a deal, actually. They were disappointed that they have not received as much money in the schools as they thought they were going to get, but they are receiving some. But they said that overall, it has been very little change. And I know the ads seem to say differently, but that's from people on the ground. We will have some responsibilities in the city to do some regulation of where and how marijuana can be sold. But for the most part, it's all regulated by the state, and the city will have very little individual control of that issue.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Councilwoman Evans, you have 1 minute.
I think that remains to be seen. I think it depends on how the, if it does pass, how the bill is rolled out. I think it depends on the different cities. I think it depends on where things are being sold. I think there's a lot that we need to basically wait and see what's going to happen and see how we need to respond.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you now have time for rebuttal.
None needed. Thank you, Xavier.
You're going to pass on that one? Okay, well, thank you for that. That will bring us to tonight's second topic, which is environmental issues affecting the city of Flagstaff. Candidates, the question, how will you as mayor work to ensure projects for future water sources like Red Gap Ranch have minimal environmental impact both within the city of Flagstaff and amongst surrounding tribal lands? Councilwoman Evans, we're going to start with you this time.
Well, first of all, the city of Flagstaff is the primary water provider in the region. And we are in the region providing water not only to the city of Flagstaff, but to different people that haul water from outside the city limits. I think that water is essential for our long-term sustainability, and without water, businesses will not want to locate here, and families won't want to live here. I think first and foremost, the city of Flagstaff needs to become an active management area in coordination with the Arizona Department of Water Resources. I believe strongly in water conservation, and I'm very proud to be the council member who brought forth the project in a work session for us to have a rainwater harvesting policy and to establish those guidelines and practices. Recently, during a city water rate study, I was advocating for full funding for our water conservation program. I was advocating for the implementation of a water conservation rebate program for a commercial, as well as a tiered water rate structure for commercial. And also was advocating for us to start collecting the $10 million that we are going to need to look at the Red Gap engineering study. Due to the lack of leadership currently on council, that did not happen. I can tell you as mayor, one of the first things I would do was to look at that and see how much water we can conserve and what we can do for the future.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Evans. Mayor Nabours, you now have 1 minute.
All right, this issue about water is very near and dear to me. I am vice chair of the Colorado Plateau Water Users Association that deals with water issues in all of the plateau, Flagstaff, and further north. And I was also very much involved in the process for how are we going to get the Red Gap water into Flagstaff. When I became mayor, we had no path for that water. The staff had tried different routes and they were not working, they were not getting permission, or they were not environmentally workable. And the logical way to get the water from Red Gap Ranch, which is 30 miles east, into Flagstaff is in the I-40 corridor. And the staff was not able to get permission from the Department of Transportation to use the I-40 corridor. When I became mayor, one of the first things I did was start working with the Department of Transportation and the governor, and we now have an agreement to use the I-40 corridor for our water line, which will be the least disruptive way to get that water into Flagstaff.
Thank you. Councilwoman Evans, your rebuttal.
I wanted to just mention to the public listening that the reason why we had to work on getting a pipeline along the I-40 corridor is because of the current lawsuit that we are involved with the tribes. There's a reclaimed water lawsuit that we've been involved with for quite a while, and that is why we were not able to have access across tribal lands. Again, I think that goes back to partnering with our tribal partners and sitting down and listening to what their concerns are and trying to figure out how we can be better partners.
Thank you. That is going to bring us to our next couple of city council candidates. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Charlie Odegaard. I'm running for Flagstaff City Council. I'm third generation small business owner here in Flagstaff. My grandparents started Odegaard Sewing Center in 1969. I'd like to get on the Flagstaff City Council to accomplish three things. One is water conservation. I serve on the Water Commission as the vice chairman right now. We've started 2 programs this past year towards conservation, and I'd like to continue those items if I get on the City Council. Next thing is traffic congestion. I've been hearing some complaints, especially about the Milton corridor. I think we can do some things to improve that area. Next thing I'd like to do is help the small business owner here in Flagstaff. I've been hearing some things from the community that Flagstaff can do some things better coming from City Hall. And I'd like to see some improvement there. And again, I'd like to ask for your vote on November 8th for Charlie Odegaard for Flagstaff City Council. Thank you.
Hello Flagstaff, my name is Jeff Horvitz, and I'm running for re-election to the Flagstaff City Council. In 2012, I ran on a platform of economic and budgetary solutions, and we've made a lot of progress over the past 4 years. In 2012, we were only spending $750,000 investing in our streets and infrastructure. We're now spending nearly $10 million per year investing in our infrastructure. We were losing nearly 30% of our police officers per year to Phoenix and other areas. My initiative to pay our officers more has led to nearly a 0 vacancy rate with our police officers. Now we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. We have to continue to focus on our economy. We have to continue good budgeting practices, and we need to continue investing heavily into our infrastructure. I've been in Flagstaff for many years. I have 3 kids here in Flagstaff who go to our schools, and I've been married for 18 years. I'm a small business owner, and I want to continue to serve our great community. My name is Jeff Horvitz, and I ask for your vote for re-election to the Flagstaff City Council.
Welcome back to the 2016 Flagstaff mayoral debate. We're going to continue with our second topic of the night, environmental issues affecting the city of Flagstaff.
Candidates, both of you have supported the latest update to the energy code, but the current code is outdated. How will you increase energy efficiency in Flagstaff while maintaining affordable housing? Mayor Nabours, we will start with you. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. We had quite a few hours of debate on which energy code we were going to enact, several levels, if you will. And it always, to me, always came down to what is the balance between saving energy and the cost. And there's almost no question that most energy saving methods, although they can be costly, they will eventually recover that cost. But it is the upfront cost that not everyone is able to afford. And every time we add an expense to housing or other buildings, it means that someone is not going to qualify to buy that home. So to me, it was a difficult decision of how much cost to add to that home versus the good that saving energy does. So I think we found some good middle ground. We didn't adopt the most stringent energy code, but we did make some significant increases in the requirements.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Councilwoman Evans, you have 1 minute.
I am proud to be part of a council that adopted the energy code, the new energy code. I think it's extremely important and vital that as we move forward as a community, that we stay abreast of new updates and new ways that we can make sure to be energy efficient. I do think it's important that we recognize that any changes to the code can impact the cost of housing here in Flagstaff. I also think it's important for us to realize there are certain things that we can do to mitigate those particular changes. There are different banking options available that we have been told about that could help with some of these issues. We have also, as a city, sought and received grants that will allow people to update their homes without any cost to them or minimal cost to them. As mayor, as we move forward, those are the types of ideas that I will be looking at and advocating for, because energy conservation is so important, especially as we move forward and we look at what we're going to look like as a city with over 100,000 people.
Thank you, Councilwoman Evans. Mayor Nabours, your rebuttal.
I don't disagree with any of that. I would also add that it should be very much the option of, in this case, homes, of the homeowner as to how much they can afford to spend. We certainly encourage energy saving methods, but not everyone can afford them.
All right, Mayor Nabours, thank you. Right now we're going to take another question that we've received from the Flagstaff community.
Let's go back to our social media correspondent, Grace Finlayson, who is live in the newsroom with a question from our viewers.
Hi everyone, up next we have a question from Mitchell Forbes. He asks, Despite calls from Senator Bernie Sanders and other leaders, neither of you support Proposition 414, which would raise the minimum wage to $10 and eventually to $15 an hour. Do you think $8.05 is enough for a living wage in Flagstaff? Cheyenne, Xavier?
All right, thanks, Grace. Councilwoman Evans, we're going to start with you on this one. You have 1 minute.
No, I do not think that $8.05 is enough for a living wage here in Flagstaff. I do not think that at all. I also, though, think that a $15 an hour minimum wage here in Flagstaff would be problematic. It would be problematic to places like NAU, student workers. It would be problematic to nonprofits. It would be problematic to small business owners here in town. I do think, however, that the state has a good option with the $12 an hour. I think it's extremely important that if we're going to raise the minimum wage, that we do it in a way that makes sure it's done clear across the board. Individuals who are currently living in public housing, individuals who get some type of government aid, if they go to $15 an hour and they lose those particular benefits, what would then happen to them? Would the $15 an hour be enough for them to truly live here in Flagstaff? I do not believe that $8.05 an hour is enough to live here in Flagstaff, but I also don't believe that the $15 an hour is a solution, because I think in the end it might jeopardize several people, several businesses, and our overall way of life.
Okay, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you have 1 minute.
Well, as you mentioned, I am opposed to Proposition 414, which would eventually raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I am on the board of directors of Goodwill, and Goodwill employs quite a few people at minimum wage, and many of these people are very thankful to have a paying job, and they need some mentoring, they need job coaching, which Goodwill provides, and that $8 an hour is not intended to be a living wage. And in many instances, the person that's getting minimum wage is maybe a first-time employee or a beginning employee, and they are needing job experience as much as they need that wage. Not always, but for most of the case. And I have, over the years, I have represented small businesses in Flagstaff as an attorney, and I've talked to many of those small businesses, and they are very concerned that they could just not increase their prices in order to cover what would be a almost double cost of labor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Councilwoman Evans, your response?
I don't have a response to that. I just want to make sure that the Flagstaff community knows that I don't believe the majority of people who are working for minimum wage are first-time workers or people who don't necessarily need money, or just high school students. We know for a fact that a large portion of people who live in the Flagstaff area are working 2 and 3 jobs to survive. We know that this is an issue. Again, I feel that the state proposal for minimum wage that would raise it clear across the board would be the most beneficial to us. And I think that we need to address the other costs other costs that make the cost of living here in Flagstaff so high that everyone needs to have 2 jobs, myself included.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And with that, we'll move on to our third topic of the night, maintaining or establishing affordable housing within the city of Flagstaff. For this topic, you will each have a question addressed specifically to you. Mayor Nabours, we will start with you. You stated that in order to reduce housing costs, there needs to be a competition in the market. How do you ensure the city and private developers have the funds to build in order to stabilize the housing prices?
Okay. Yes, I have stated many times that the only way you are going to bring down housing costs, whether it is apartment rentals or house purchases, is by having more of a supply to meet the very high demand. We are very much behind the curve in the supply. It's not that I have some desire to see more and more things built, but as long as that demand is there, we have to have more supply in order to keep the prices under control. Now, what the city can do is, what actually came up last night at City Council, is at my urging, the city agreed to do a study and some of the initial engineering to bring a road behind Little America that would open up approximately 2,000 acres of land. This would not be something that the city would just pay for. this would be something that the property owners would pay for it, and they are willing to pay for it, and it would open up more land. As we have more land available and accessible, then there would be more areas for residential that would meet this demand, and the prices would start going down.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Councilwoman Evans, you now have 1 minute to respond.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I do agree that having more housing here in the city of Flagstaff is what we need, but I want to make sure that we don't believe as a city that just because there's more houses, they're going to automatically be affordable. We have been working with developers for as long as I've been on council and before in trying to get affordable housing, and there always seems to be a reason why we can't produce affordable housing. The energy code's going to make it too expensive. The setbacks are going to make it too expensive. I just want to make sure that we as a city are aware of that. I think there's some other ways that we can achieve the affordable housing goal that we have here. I think we can do some changes in the regulations that allow for secondary dwelling units. I also think that we can work with the state of Arizona to get past the challenges for mobile home park rehabilitation. I think over-the-counter self-certification and those types of building permits might actually help. And I also think sitting down and working with NAU and seeing what they're going to do with their property that they own, and perhaps how we could get some housing units on those pieces of property. That would be for students as well as for professors, as well as people that work here at NAU.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
I brought forth to council a couple of different things here in the last few months that would also help the cost and bring down the cost of housing. We made some small changes in the zoning code that would allow, say, a duplex on a lot that right now that is not allowed. In some of the areas where that would make sense, where there are other duplexes in the area. And then secondly, right now, the city charges about a $10,000 fee for a water meter for every single unit. You have a triplex, that's 3 water meters, $30,000. And I am bringing forth a proposal to the council to just allow 1 master meter.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours.
We're going to take a quick break, but first, another word from one of our city council candidates.
Hey folks, this is Adam Shimoni, and I'm running for city council. I originally came to Flagstaff in 2005, where I attended NAU and got 2 degrees in education and a minor in business. I since then have traveled many parts of the world and came back to Flagstaff because I miss this town too much. This is really where I call home. I was originally born in Jerusalem, Israel, so I have a very big world perspective, and I'm excited about being so involved in local politics here in Flagstaff. I've been engaged in local politics for 4 years now, going to council meetings, and have seen firsthand how our council members work, operate, and collaborate. There is a huge disconnect between our population and those who are representing us, and we need to re-engage. So I'm running. I hope to get in there. I hope for your support. Help spread the word. Take a look at my website. My top 10 list of priorities are broken down. Share that information. Let's excite, empower, and educate our community for this November election. Have a good day.
Hi everyone. My name's Jamie Whelan, and I'm running for Flagstaff City Council. I'm a small business owner here in Flagstaff. I also have been a teacher for over 36 years. This election is very important to us as community members. You know, it's time that we vote our values and look at the things that will be facing Flagstaff in a collaborative way. I believe that City Council needs to be built on consensus, and I would love to represent your voice on City Council. So please vote for me November 8th.
Welcome back. That was your 6th and final candidate for Flagstaff City Council. As a reminder, only 3 council seats are open on November's ballot.
If you're just joining us, this is a special 1-hour edition of NAZ Today as we present the 2016 Flagstaff Mayoral Debate.
We are broadcasting live from the campus of Northern Arizona University and are joined in studio by both mayoral candidates Coral Evans and Jerry Nabours.
We're going to continue with our third topic of the night, maintaining and establishing affordable housing in the city of Flagstaff. Our next question will go to Coral Evans. In regard to housing, you want to establish a land use partnership with NAU. But what does that mean for local residents and the housing costs for them?
Well, I think first of all, establishing a partnership with NAU when it comes to land use and housing is going to definitely positively impact the city of Flagstaff. People who work at NAU live in the city of Flagstaff. Students obviously live within the city of Flagstaff. So I think having NAU come to the table and help us solve this affordable housing crisis that we have here is going to help solve it for students. It's also going to help solve it for people who work at NAU. I think having more land available, and quite frankly, land available that's in a housing trust. One of the reasons why the cost of housing here in Flagstaff is so expensive is the cost of land. If NAU brings land to the table and that land is put in a housing trust program, then we can find partners who will build property, build houses, build apartments on that land, but that takes the cost of the land out of the equation, making it more affordable. I think we also need to bolster our particular land trust here in the city of Flagstaff and work not only with NAU, but other large employers to see if we can't bring even more land into these land trusts.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you now have 1 minute to respond.
Well, NAU is doing its part, as far as I can see, is in regard to housing students. There is a new hilltop type facility that is being built on the campus now, and this will put NAU's on-campus housing at about 50%. That is very high for any university, and that speaks very well for how NAU is responding to the increase in students. But NAU has its jurisdiction, and Flagstaff has its jurisdiction, and it is very difficult to make a partnership with the city and with NAU. The city is not in the housing business. The city facilitates some subsidized housing. I'm on the Flagstaff Housing Authority, where we administer the Section 8 programs and the low-cost housing. But the city, neither the city nor NAU are directly in the housing business.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Coral Evans, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
I just want to make sure that people understand that I'm trying to take a holistic viewpoint when it comes to affordable housing here in the city of Flagstaff. Definitely we need to house students, but we also need to house people that work at NAU. I think it's also important for us to understand as a community, we have many partnerships with different jurisdictions. We have partnerships with the tribe. We have with the different tribes. We have partnerships with Coconino County. We have partnerships with several different entities, and I don't understand why it would be any more challenging for us to sit down and have a conversation and build a true partnership with NAU.
Thank you, Councilwoman Evans, and that will conclude this topic. Right now, we're going to have one final question submitted to us from our viewers.
Let's go back live in the newsroom to our social media correspondent, Grace Finlayson, with a question from our viewers. Grace?
Thanks, guys. Our final question is from Taylor Haynes, who asks, housing and parking are definitely a concern for students and community members, especially with the arrival of Hub in the South Side. What will you do as mayor to alleviate these concerns while also considering all possible perspectives in the Flagstaff community? Cheyenne, Xavier?
Thanks, Grace. Mayor Nabours, we will start with you. You have 1 minute.
All right, first let me address a parking issue. This has been an issue in the areas around NAU for some time now. And I think a week or two ago, Council adopted a parking plan after working on it for many, many months. And it will provide for metered parking on the major streets of both the south side and north of the train depot. And it will also have permits available on the ancillary streets. And what that will do is allow the residents who live close to NAU to get a permit and have some areas of their block designated for residents only. This is going to help the parking situation. As far as housing, it goes back to there is a demand for housing, and you'll see that it is starting to be met there are a number of housing projects that are already in the process around town.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Councilwoman Evans, you have 1 minute.
I just wanted to say that I am excited that the City Council finally addressed the issue with parking when it comes into neighborhoods that are close by NAU. The South Side neighborhood, for example, is the only neighborhood in the state of Arizona that's adjacent to a large university that does not have a residential parking permit system. It was something that I've worked on for 8 years, and finally we decided that we would address that issue. Something else we've also done as a council is we have a partnership with NAU and the city where we have hired a community liaison. That individual is able to go between NAU, the neighborhoods, and the city of Flagstaff to address some more issues that the residents in the neighborhood have. Again, when it comes to housing, I want to say that we can definitely be doing more. I would like for us to have a joint meeting with the Board of Regents. I would like for us to truly get an understanding as to what they see the growth of NAU being and how we can work together to truly make sure that we can house not only students, but people who work at NAU.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. That is your time. Mayor Nabours, you have time for rebuttal.
I don't disagree with any of those things, and I think that we do have a good relationship with NAU. We are having certainly growing pains as NAU grows, but we will handle those, and we are very happy to have NAU in our city. I am, and I am very happy to have the students. And so we will accommodate them as best we can. But again, I would point out the city is not in the business of building housing.
All right, Mayor Nabours, thank you. This is going to bring us to our fourth and final topic of the night, which will include questions. I'm sorry.
Can I please just make a comment on that?
Sure, we do have time for that.
I do think it's important for us to understand as a community, while the city itself is not in the housing or the housing business, that's not exactly true. We have a housing land trust. We operate the Flagstaff Housing Authority. We take CDBG funds that assist with first-time home builders, first-time home buyers programs. We are in the housing business, and we have been asked by the citizens of this city to address this issue. So I think we need to address it.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Evans. This is going to bring us, as I was saying, to our fourth and final topic of the night, which will include questions regarding Flagstaff's economy. Candidates, what do you think is the biggest financial challenge in Flagstaff, and how do you plan to address it if you were to be elected mayor? Councilwoman Evans, we're going to start with you.
I think our biggest challenge here in the city of Flagstaff is the cost of living. I think the biggest challenge within the cost of living is the cost of housing. I think that if we address the cost of housing and mitigate that particular expense, we can actually drive down the cost of living here in Flagstaff. When it comes to the economy and small businesses, I'm the only candidate that's running for mayor that has direct hands-on experience in job creation, in business development and expansion, and in workforce training. Again, I am the only candidate that has direct experience in those areas. I have been locally and nationally recognized for my work. I also think one of the things that I would like to see us do is a renewed interest in our small businesses here in town. I'd like for us to grow some of the small industries we have. For example, our microbrewery, our arts and science and culture. I think those things will also bring jobs that will pay more, that will help.
All right, Councilwoman Evans, thank you. Mayor Nabours, you have 1 minute.
It's always a battle, if you will, to get new employers to come to Flagstaff. And we need new employers because we never know when we're going to lose an employer. And when the Walgreens Distribution Center closed, that was a couple of hundred jobs gone. That was 200 plus families in Flagstaff affected. So we need to have new companies interested in Flagstaff, asking them to come to Flagstaff, employ people here. I'll give you an example. About a year ago, a new rehabilitation hospital showed interest in Flagstaff. I met with them, I helped them find some land, get connected with the hospital, and eventually, a few weeks ago, they finally broke ground. We will have a new rehabilitation hospital in Flagstaff that will employ 200 people. we have to keep that balance. We lose jobs now and then, and we have to be bringing in jobs.
Thank you,
The
Mayor
small
Nabours.
businesses are fine, but we need the bigger ones too.
Councilwoman Evans, your rebuttal.
I would say that I think it's extremely important that we bring new businesses to town. But I also think it's extremely important that we support our small businesses that are here in town. The majority of us work for a small business. It took approximately 3 years to bring this particular business to town. And we are constantly looking for large businesses. But what would happen if we as a community decide to grow businesses from within as well? I run a small micro-entrepreneurship center in the Sunnyside neighborhood area, and I can tell you that having people start their own business is a pathway out of poverty, and I think that we could do a better job of that here in the city of Flagstaff.
Thank you, Councilwoman. After this final break, we will have our final question and closing statements. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the 2016 Flagstaff mayoral debate. We're going to continue on the topic of economics. Candidates, the cost of living in Flagstaff has increased as the city has continued to grow. What actions are you taking or supporting to account for this growth? Mayor Nabours, we're going to start with you.
Well, I guess there's a lot of things that are involved with growth, of course. And one of those is traffic, maybe the biggest one. Took a long time to get over here today. And we need a long-range plan with priorities for how we are going to handle our traffic. When I was elected mayor 4 years ago, I was amazed to find that there was not a comprehensive, map on the wall, if you will, of all of the streets in Flagstaff and all of the future streets and how everything would be connected and what was the priority for building those and how would they be funded. Instead, it's been a lot of piecemeal things here and there, a roundabout here and something else over there. And now finally, I have been pushing hard and we are getting to where we have a long-range plan and how all of the parts of that plan will be funded.
All right, Mayor Nabours, thank you. Councilwoman Evans, you have 1 minute.
Again, some of my ideas for growing our local economy, I think it's important if we can grow our local economy and grow the businesses and jobs that we have here with high-paying good jobs, I think that we can truly make a difference through the lives of the residents that live here in the city of Flagstaff. Some of the ideas I have include extending our current partnership that we have with NAU with regards to STEM technology to the other universities here in the state of Arizona, ASU and U of A as well, bringing some of those partnerships up here. I'd also like to work with North Country Community Health Center and their doctor's residency program. They have a residency program where they bring doctors here to Flagstaff, but they end up leaving. What can we do to help them establish their practices here? I think that's important. I'd like to work on growing our microbrewery industry. Down in Verde Valley, the wine industry is now a $50 million industry. That happened within the course of the last 10 years. What can we do to grow our microbrewing industry here to that as well? I have a whole list of things I think that I'm going to be bringing forward that I think that the community would be really interested in looking at to help grow our economy.
Mayor Nabours, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Well, growth involves a lot of things, and certainly it is building the economy and getting more jobs, and I've talked about that, and it's housing, we've talked about that, and it's traffic, and I mentioned the plans for that. So it's all of these factors that have to come together. But it's beyond just talking about it. We are to the point where we need to have some action. And that's one of the things that I am good at, is taking the idea and bringing it to an end result.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours.
All right, candidates, well, those are all the questions we have for you tonight. We're now going to give you some time for some closing statements. Mayor Nabours, we're going to start with you.
All right, thank you, and thank you to the viewers, and thank you to our moderators. This has been a fun debate. As you will see, we don't battle it out here quite as much as you may have seen in some other debates, and that's good. Now, one of the things that I would ask you to look at in considering me to continue as the mayor is, how am I viewed by my peers around the state even? And there is an organization of cities, the League of Cities it's called, and it is controlled by an executive committee. I was elected to that executive committee a few years ago, and until then, Flagstaff had no representation on that very important committee and association for 5 years. An example of what that organization does is there was a significant issue about revenue sharing in the legislature this year. And Flagstaff, the way it was proposed, Flagstaff would have lost $400 and some thousand. By being on the executive committee, I was able to bring Flagstaff's position to the table, make the arguments, and we saved that money. We not only did not get cut, we got an increase. I am the chairman of the Association of Mayors north of Phoenix. We have a big issue with Interstate 17.
Thank you, Mayor Nabours. Your time is up. Councilwoman Evans, your time starts now.
Again, I want to say thank you to everybody here in the TV station, the live audience, and thank you to all of you at home who tuned into this. I want to say that this election is not about this project or that project. It's not even about this policy versus that policy. This election is about whether or not Flagstaff wants an open government that respects the multiple voices and a local government that respects the multiple values that we have here that makes up this incredible city. I will work and will continue to work with the citizens in the neighborhoods here in this city to protect our quality of life and our historic neighborhoods and our dark skies. I promised to fight to protect our after-school programs and our library hours. I'm the only candidate that is running that has direct hands-on experience in job creation, in business development, and in workforce training. I have been doing community work here in this city for over 20 years. I've been on council for 8, and I was vice mayor for 2. I have a record that shows that I'm willing to advocate on behalf of our entire community, not just a chosen few. This campaign is about the Flagstaff that we know and that we love. If Flagstaff is to continue to be that city, that requires a change of leadership. As a third-generation daughter of Flagstaff, I'm asking that you all allow me to help guide our treasured community into the future. I'm asking you for your support, and I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Evans. And with that, we conclude the 2016 Flagstaff mayoral debate. We want to thank both of the candidates for being here tonight, as well as the City Council candidates for being a part of this debate.
As a reminder, Election Day is just days away. Please be sure to go out and vote on Tuesday, November 8th. And if you're voting by mail, it is recommended that you mail in your ballot by November 2nd to ensure that it's received by the 8th. I'm Xavier Rangel.
And I'm Cheyenne Mumphrey. For all of us here at NAZ Today, thank you for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow night.